Coming up, the deadline falls on the UK National Parks Challenge. Will the team complete the task in time? We review the world's newest film camera with a guest reviewer, and we see how much fun we can have with a blindfold and syringe.
Welcome to another episode of the world's best photography show, Photography Online. In addition to everything you've just seen, we'll be explaining a great new way for you to support this channel and at the same time get something to hang on your wall. How's that for a win-win situation? I'll also be revealing details of a couple of amazing prizes we've got to give away worth a total of £3,000. Could you be the winner? Keep watching to find out, because it has to be someone and it might as well be you. But before all of that, let's get straight down to business. Last year, I set what I consider to be a very ambitious photo challenge for some of the team to shoot all 15 UK national parks in just 7 days with the images needed for a 2025 calendar. Over the past 8 months, we have been following their progress and the finish line is finally in sight. They've still got 2 parks to go and only have until the end of the day to find their subjects and get something calendar worthy in the bag. It's not only the ticking watch which they're up against, it's also the British weather, which will throw a spanner in the works whenever it can. As always, Accurist Watches are the official timekeepers, so let's see how they get on their final day.
Previously on the National Parks Challenge.
The mission is to photograph all 15 UK national parks in 1 week.
That'll be me. 2 shots for the morning. Job done.
Stupid bloody beach.
This was a viewpoint that I knew would work, and I think it works really well at this time of day at dusk.
Right, that's it back there, that's it. That is absolutely bang on there.
I just need a proper night's sleep.
Give him a hug. Come on.
Oh, it's not
now that
That's just made it worse. We'd saved our earliest start for the final day, as we wanted to be in position well before dawn to catch any colour in the sky. None of us had been to this location before, so we were all on a fast learning curve in terms of exactly what conditions would suit the scene. This challenge is all about making the best of whatever conditions we're provided with, but as the first light appeared on the horizon, things were looking fairly promising.
Well, good morning from Exmoor National Park. We're all set up and we're waiting for the light to just put some colour in the clouds that are on the horizon there. So the clouds that are very low to the horizon have already got the light, but it hasn't reached the ones that are a bit higher up there, but it's getting there.
Almost.
And obviously the lighter it gets, the more detail it puts into the shadows down here. At the moment, this is a very high contrast scene. So I'm shooting film, Harry's shooting digital. I haven't bothered taking any shots yet because I know that it's just not going to work. So it may be that we just use Harry's camera for this one, but we'll see how it goes.
So as Mark's mentioned, it's pretty high contrast at the moment. We're just starting to get a bit more colour in the sky. But even for my Canon R5, which has got a dynamic range of maybe 13, 14, actually maybe even 15 stops, it's well outside the range of my camera. So we don't often use the word bracketing in amongst the team, but when it's necessary, it's a really useful tool. So I'm actually extended it to about 5 shots bracket at the moment, just to make sure I've got all of the shadow detail down in the bay here. We've got some beautiful gorse, the greens and the shadow detail in the rocks, and the extreme highlights, the reds and the pinks. And hopefully Ruth doesn't think that a bracket merge and a HDR shot is outside of the rules, because at the moment there is no other way to take the shot. I can't really use a grad, I've got too much poking up into the sky and the colour, and we'll just wait for the tones to even out a little bit and I might be able to get away with just 1 shot. Here's what a sequence of exposure bracketed images looks like on the back of the camera.
So the sun is now up above the horizon, but we can't see it because it's hidden just behind the peninsula over there, which is a little bit of a shame. But I reckon, another 4 or 5 days from this spot and that sun will be rising to the left. So we've just about missed it. But that brings us on to a valid point here, that this is the first time we've ever been to this location, and obviously it's not local to us. But if this was a location that was local to you, then there would obviously be a better time of year to come. And so at the moment, there's very little leaves and greenery down there, but in the summer, this would look very lush and green. And also the sun would be rising much further to the left, so the light would be flooding in, the morning light would be flooding into this bay. And tides also would make an influence here, or have an influence here, because when we first arrived, there was a sandbank connecting the island to the mainland, but now the tides come up and that sandbank has gone. And it was actually quite nice to see that there. So if this was a local scene to me, I'd be revisiting it in June, at a time when the level of the tide coincided with the sunrise, to get what would potentially be the best shot of this location. But sadly, we're up against it. We can only come here today because of the challenge, and maybe we'll never come back again, who knows, but it will be a good one to remember, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'll probably come back here. This is the result of merging 5 exposures to give full detail from the darkest shadow to the brightest highlight, at a time when the colour in the sky was at its best. And here's the same shot from a few minutes later when the sun first appeared over the distant peninsula, but the sky isn't quite as good. On balance, we prefer this one, but let us know what you think.
The sun's got a bit too high for this scene now, so I reckon we're done here, which leaves us with only one location to do. So we're 14 down, 1 to go, and Dartmoor is about an hour and a half in that direction.
It was only about 30 miles though.
I know, but you know what the roads are like down here.
Regardless of the condition of the roads, we thought we'd give you an insight into the noise we'd had to endure over the past week. From the outside, motorhomes seem to be smooth and tranquil. In reality though, they are anything but. The plates, the oven, the cupboards, etc. all rattle violently, and it's like an endless torture, in vast contrast to the peaceful landscapes passing by outside.
We took a break from the assault on the ears by stopping briefly at an elevated viewpoint which had caught my eye in the glorious spring sunshine. Marcus?
Yeah?
Can you pass me my camera, please?
Where is it?
In my bag.
This one?
Yeah, perfect.
Here you go.
Top marks,
Here
this
you go.
composition. Yeah. Oh, So, a camera down, but only one shot to go. However, we needed to find it first. Living locally, I know the area as well as anyone, but these flat lighting conditions were proving a bit of a problem. We initially checked out Brentor Church with the intention of returning later in the day when the light was more favourable. The problem was the forecast wasn't suggesting this was likely to happen. To play it safe, I took us to another church which I thought would work well in the current conditions, just to take the pressure off. I hadn't put up with these two and the rattling of this motorhome for the past 7 days to fall at the final hurdle, so a safety shot was my top priority. So here we are in Dartmoor, down at St Raphael's Church. It's a bit of a challenging day because of the overhead conditions, to put it mildly. Both Harry, Marcus and myself have been really struggling to find something that's really going to work for the calendar here. But nonetheless, we found a composition that will work, and the light's working well on it in these overhead, very subdued, just otherwise incredibly boring, just dull conditions. So Marcus is over here. The composition's got to be a very precise one, so we'll go and have a look and see what he's up to. So this precise spot needs a bit of leaning over a wall, does it?
Well, the eyesore here is the gravel car park.
Yep.
So we need to hide that behind this stone here.
Yep.
But we've still got the nice S-bend of the road.
Yep, and only a hint of car park.
And the only other eyesore is that sign, which I think might be moving in a minute.
I think it might just... We're not allowed to clone, are we?
Not allowed to clone, but we are allowed to move.
Physically move. So where's this positioning then?
It's about here.
By that knobble.
Yeah, and this is where I have to admit that a tilt screen comes in handy. So, because we want everything to be reasonably sharp, from here, which is probably half a metre away, to the church as James subtly moves the sign. Don't worry, no one's looking. Then we're going to need a small aperture for this. So at the moment we're on f/16. Now that's never going to make this pin sharp, and we don't care about that. We don't want this pin sharp. Lots of people would focus stack this, but why you'd want this pin sharp is a mystery. So we're going to render this slightly out of focus, just so it's a little bit soft, but so you can see the detail on the moss, but the focus will be on the background. So it might even be f/11.
With that shot safely on the memory card, we still had a couple of hours of daylight left to explore Dartmoor for other potential.
Where's Marcus anyway? We got to go.
He's just packing up. Let's turn the van round anyway. Do you want me to see you back?
No, you're good. Come on, let's get out of here. You can jump in.
Oh, what was that?
It's all right, it's only digital.
So 2 cameras down, but we were over the finish line, and that's all that really mattered. Under increasingly cloudy skies, there was a sense that the adventure was over. We set up a distant shot of the setting sun behind the church we'd scoped out earlier in the day, but the thickening cloud cover to the west soon put an end to this idea. It was as though nature's curtain was falling on this epic challenge. The show was over, and it was time for us to exit stage left.
We'd been on an incredible journey which had seen us seeing the best the UK has to offer, from the Highlands of Scotland to the beaches of Wales, and from the mountains of Cumbria to the windmills of Norfolk. We'd somehow managed to get photos from every location we'd visited.
We'd experienced all weather conditions from driving rain to glorious sunshine and embraced everything that was thrown at us.
We'd had our fair share of mishaps along the way, but we were still alive and had kept each other entertained with our silly jokes.
Will you buckle up?
Oh, it's in my eye.
Oh, it won't stop hurting.
What had started out as a challenge 7 days ago had turned into an adventure none of us will ever forget.
So, 15 parks done.
Yes.
Lots of fun had. Maybe not in the motorhome. Definitely not going to go in the motorhome together again.
Well, that was the biggest challenge, to be honest.
What, spending time together in there?
The photography was the easy part.
Yeah, the best night was in the Premier Inn. But anyway, let's forget about that. We've travelled from top to the bottom of the country, east to west.
Nearly 3,000 miles.
3,000 miles, 15 parks. Beautiful, every single one, I would say, would you not?
Yeah, absolutely. A great diversity of landscapes and different kind of, subjects to shoot as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think we've
yeah,
covered
that's
everything from the top of Scotland to down here in the south of England, from coast to mountain. I mean, what
Hasn't
more?
got any warmer though, is it?
No, it hasn't.
And with that, it was time to go our own ways. Ruth mentioned nothing about returning the motorhome, so, having checked it was hired in her name, we decided to head home by other means.
Tenting has its merits, right? But caravanning,
It's not for me.
there's always one person, isn't there, ruins
There's
it.
always one. Well, speaking of,
Oh yeah, anyway,
There he
better
is.
pretend. Have a seat, put your feet up.
Boys will be boys. So once they were finished rolling around on the ground, they did send me all the photos. Marcus thought it would be funny to send me his rolls of undeveloped film, but I managed to get that processed and have looked through all the shots they took over their relentless week on the road. The good news is that thankfully we've got enough shots for a 2025 calendar. In fact, all 15 photos will make it onto the calendar, as it feels wrong to leave 1 or 2 out. Here's a montage of the shots they took in chronological order. Those shots will make up our 2025 calendar, which is ready to send to print and is available for pre-order now. This is one of the best ways to support this channel and ensure we can continue making great content for you next year. The calendars will be A3 size when opened and will include January 2026 too for all you planners out there. The price is just £15 plus shipping to wherever you are in the world. Our Photography Online official supporters, or POOS for short, will get 25% off, as we like to look after you just as you look after us. Simply use the promo code you've been sent. We've only got a limited supply, and once they're gone, they are gone, so get in quick while they're still available. But that's not the end of it. Whoever finds this lucky logo hidden inside their calendar will join us on our winter Ascent photo adventure here in the Highlands of Scotland. This is one of our brand new trips. In fact, it's so new we don't even have any promotional video of it. Team members Harry and Nick will be hosting a fantastic week of winter landscape photography, and our in-house chef will be making sure that nobody goes hungry. It runs from the 19th to the 26th of January next year. It's all inclusive and it's worth an amazing £2,500. This lucky logo will be in one of the pre-order calendars, which will be shipped towards the end of October. So if you want to help support the show next year, then get your pre-order in soon to be in with a chance of finding it. Okay, so one of the most exciting camera releases this year hasn't come from Canon, Sony, Fuji or Nikon, but a name which used to be one of the most respected in the industry, Pentax. They never really got a foothold in the digital market, but they've now done something which no other big brand has had the nerve to do, and they've made a brand new film camera. This isn't aimed at experienced film shooters, but more towards younger Instagrammers and cool hipsters. Now, as we have got nobody in the team who comes close to fitting that description, we had to go looking for a new recruit who could pull that role off with ease.
Hello, my name is Shanna, and I have been asked to review a brand new film camera from Pentax. The producers of the show told me to go to York to put this new kid on the block through its paces. However, this proved more of a challenge than I thought. This is my first time travelling alone, so I don't have any experience. There were so many options and it took me a while before I found my first clue. But the train platform was strangely quiet, and I knew something was wrong, as I couldn't be the only person travelling on the 10 o'clock from Edinburgh to London. So we're not got off to a very good start because my train got cancelled. So I asked someone for directions and they told me to take the bus. So here I am, and I'm very excited to test this new camera in York. To admit, York was a lot further than I expected and much bigger than I had ever imagined. My guidebook wasn't making much sense, so I spent my first couple of hours just walking around and trying to find my bearings. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't find the cathedral anywhere, and when I asked for directions from the people on the street, they spoke in a strange accent as though they were in a movie. I messed up. Instead of asking for directions to review a new camera in York, I think I asked directions to review a camera in New York. Well, I'm here now, so better make the most of it. So what is the Pentax 17? It's a half-frame camera, which means it takes photos half the size of full frame. There are advantages and disadvantages to this, something I'll cover in a moment. So what this means is that when you hold it like this, you get a portrait photo, and when you hold it like this, you get a landscape photo. Funky or what? This is a viewfinder camera, meaning you aren't looking through the lens, but through a separate window. This does mean, however, that there's a higher chance to make the classic mistake of leaving the lens cap on. But Pentax have thought of this, and they've put a blinking light in the viewfinder to warn you that you're an idiot before you prove it beyond doubt by taking a blank photo. Of course, I would never do that. The focusing is a bit of a novelty in that this camera zone focuses. It basically divides the distance scale into 6 zones, ranging from 25 centimeter to infinity. All I need to do is decide which zone my subject is in and set the icon on the camera lens. So I'm going to set it to the knife and fork. Pentax have made this easy by including an appropriate icon for each zone. The closest being a flower, which represents anything super close up. In fact, the wrist strap has been made to be exactly this distance, so if you are not good at judging how far 25 centimeters is, then you simply measure it with the strap. The other distances are displayed by one person, 2 people, a group of people, and then a mountain for infinity. The lens itself is a 25mm f3.5 super sharp optic. One thing Pentax haven't compromised on is the quality of the glass. It's multi-coated and repels water and other wet things such as ketchup and Nutella, which you may not want on your lens. So let's have a look inside the camera, and obviously you don't do it when you have film inside. As you can see, we have a very small frame window, which is half the size of 35mm or full frame. The camera has been well made and loading film is very easy. Simply pull the film over to the red mark, close the back, fire off a few blanks until the counter says 0 and you're ready to take photos. On the subject of film, even though this camera will give you twice the number of shots on each roll, I still needed to buy more film. So I took the opportunity to visit the world's most famous camera store. Luckily, they had exactly what I wanted and it was delivered by conveyor belt, which I thought was quite cool. To make the most of the colour film I had loaded, I took a visit to the colour factory to see what I could get there. The only problem was they spelt colour wrong. The 25mm focal length isn't as wide as you might think. This is because the film area is only half that of full frame, so the equivalent focal length is 37mm, which is close to my favourite 35mm. However, without any way to zoom, this can be limiting when shooting subjects from very far away. The fastest exposure time is 1/350th of a second, with the longest being bulb mode, which I guess is only limited by your own patience. The aperture range is from f3.5 to f16, but the camera doesn't offer any direct way to control either the exposure time or the aperture, which I think is a shame as it doesn't teach anyone anything about the exposure triangle. You can, however, influence these settings in long-winded ways. For example, the bokeh setting will force the camera to shoot with the aperture wide open. It has a built-in flash which you can force to fire or disable. However, this will only be useful on subjects closer than a couple of meters. Another control is exposure compensation. However, if you don't know what your exposure time or aperture is, then how do you know if you want to increase or reduce the exposure? All I can say is that when photographing a dark subject like this statue, dial in some negative exposure to make sure the subject comes out dark. And when photographing a bright subject, dial in some positive exposure to ensure the subject comes out bright. I know I was supposed to be testing the Pentax 17, but I found some spinny chairs and needed a spinny chair break, so I got a bit distracted. Well, I'm only 12 years old and spinny chairs are fun when you are my age, but it was a good time to try a selfie with this camera. The light meter is cleverly positioned within the filter thread, meaning that once you fit any filters on the front, the light meter will automatically include these in its calculations. Basically, it's one less thing you need to worry about. I used a red filter for some of my black and white shots, as this helps boost contrast on sunny days. About ending up in New York by accident is that there's lots to photograph. There is some great modern architecture, some classic architecture, and of course many iconic subjects. But you can just spend hours walking around different areas to experience different atmospheres. I managed to get stuck in the world's biggest department store. Oh well, I can think of worse places to be stranded. Of course, I need to have refreshments after so much walking. I ended up spending a few days getting to know this new camera. It might not be the ideal camera for experienced film shooters, but for those who want to document their everyday lives with a camera which will fit into your pocket, then this could be the ideal choice. In total, I shot 3 rolls of film, which gave me almost 200 photos. So this is certainly a camera which won't cost you a fortune in film. Which is similar in euros or dollars. This might sound steep, but if you put aside Leica, because let's face it, I can't afford one of those, this is the first serious new film camera to come off of a major production line since I was born. Pentax were one of the most respected names in film photography, and now they've relaunched their film camera production, with this being the first. What comes next is anyone's guess, but my money is on a 35mm full frame, fully manual body. After that, it could be a medium format. Who knows? What we do know is that this is just the start. The future of the Pentax film project will rely on the success of this camera, so I give it a big thumbs up. Once you realise who this camera is made for, it really is a great little camera that won't cost you a fortune in film. Now, what else is there to see around here?
Well, that worked out well for her. For anyone who is concerned, she did make it back to her parents in one piece. If you're one of our many hundreds of POOS, that's a Photography Online official supporter, then we will be giving away this very camera on our next PO live show, an occasion where we get the whole team together and have a bit of fun expanding on the topics covered on this show and answering your questions as they come in on the live chat. We also give away great prizes such as this, which, as Shanna mentioned, is worth £499, so it really is a great prize. In fact, these are actually quite difficult to get at the moment due to the huge demand. When Shanna took it into B&H, all the staff were asking her where she'd got it from, as apparently these are like hen's teeth at the moment. It is only £399 to become one of our POOs, so it is well worth joining in the fun. One thing which is available for everyone is the Photography Online podcast. It's an hour of entertaining radio hosted by myself along with a couple of different members of the team every month. This month's podcast has just gone live, so if you want to hear us chatting about the Trump bullet photo, the Olympic moonshot with the Eiffel Tower, discussing the pitfalls of photo competitions, super high frame rates and looking at a couple of new cameras on the scene, then check it out on all the usual podcast platforms. Okay, so we've just seen how economical this camera is on film, as it takes twice the number of photos as a normal 35mm camera for the same price. Another way that you can save money when shooting film is to do your own developing at home. This is something that many people are rightly rather scared of in case you ruin your precious film. However, it isn't really anything to worry about, and it's way easier than you probably think. I mean, if Marcus can do it, then surely anyone can.
Back in the days when film photography was the only photography, you could get your exposed film processed pretty much everywhere. Pharmacies, high street photo stores and even pro labs were situated in almost every town in every corner of the world. But that all changed with something called the digital camera. People stopped shooting film and labs closed down as though they were going out of business, because they were. Fast forward to today, and film photography is seeing a major resurgence. However, if you want to get your photos developed, then it's no longer simply a case of popping down to Snappy Snaps, dropping off your film, going to get a coffee and cake before returning an hour later to pick up your processed film and prints. Unless you are lucky enough to live close enough to one of the few remaining photo labs, processing film today is likely to look more like this. Of course, you can do it this way, and by doing so, you'll be supporting the few labs who are keeping the service alive. But I want to show you another way of getting your film processed without even having to leave your home. I've just come back from a 3-week trip abroad where, as you can see, I've shot a few rolls of film. Now, I shot all these films on these two cameras. Firstly, we have a Mamiya 6 folding camera from 1957, so nearly 80 years old, but it still takes fantastic photos. And the good thing about this is it folds up and that will fit into a pocket. So it's one of my favorite cameras to take when I'm traveling around. And then we have the RZ67, which is like the big cousin. And this certainly doesn't fit into a pocket. It's a bit of a beast, but it's a lot more versatile because you can change the lenses and you've got more control over exposure time. So the good thing about taking these two cameras is that they both take the same format of film. So this is medium format film, also known as 120 film. Now, I mentioned that there's 4 different types of film. I've got 3 of them here. We'll talk about the 4th in a moment. So let's start with black and white because it's the easiest of all the films to process. I've got 8 rolls here, and between these rolls there's a few different types of film. So I've got Ilford SFX 200 there. I've got Ilford FP4 Plus there. It doesn't matter what your films are. If they're black and white, they can be processed in the same chemicals. So let's look at the chemicals. I use something called 510 Pyro because this will process any black and white film in existence. They just need different times for different types of film. All of the times are available to look up online. It's very easy, just follow the instructions. It's just a 2-bath process basically. You just need a developer and then you need a fixer. The fixer basically makes the film light safe so that
you can then look at it in the light and it's not going to affect the image anymore. The only other thing you're going to need is water to wash this off, and also wash this off once you've done the fixing. It's very easy, and the temperature is conveniently very similar to room temperature. So it needs to be 21 degrees, which is mostly room temperature, certainly in the area of the world that I live in. If you live in a very hot or cold country, it might be slightly different, but it's usually not required that you have to bring anything up or lower the temperature of the chemicals, because once you mix them, let them come to room temperature, it's normally very close to 21 degrees. So it's very easy to do. So that's black and white. Let's look at colour now. There's two different colour films I've got here. This one here is colour negative film, and this one here is colour positive film. Let's look at the negative first. This requires a process called C41. So one of these kits here, this one here is called C41 kit, and inside here is lots of different chemicals which basically you mix together, and you're going to end up with 3 different bottles: a developer, a bleach, and then a fixer. So it's not that dissimilar to black and white, except we've just got another step in the middle of these two. So it takes a little bit more time, and the other difference is that the temperature for this is 38 degrees, so it's a lot warmer than room temperature. So you have to pay a little bit more attention, because if you don't keep your chemicals up to temperature, they're going to cool down very quickly, and that's going to affect your results. But other than that, it's a really straightforward and simple process. So that brings us on to the final one, which is E6. This is colour positive film, and this requires an E6 kit like the one here. Now, this is a little bit more complicated than this one here, in terms of once you've mixed all the ingredients here, for which there's instructions inside, it's not complicated, you're going to end up with 6 bottles. So this is a 6 bath process rather than just a 3 bath process. So it just takes a little bit longer. So in terms of time, I would say that black and white probably takes about 20 minutes to do one cycle. And a cycle could just mean 1 roll, or it could mean 2 rolls, or it could be 3 rolls, but you're doing them at the same time in the same tank. C41 probably takes about half an hour to do 1 cycle, and then E6 you're probably looking at about 45-50 minutes. So as you can see, I've got quite a lot of work to do, so I'm going to go and process this film now. Why don't you come with me and I'll show you how it's done.
Let's begin with a list of equipment you will definitely need to process any kind of film. A developing tank and spool, such as these ones from Patterson. The tanks come in various sizes, allowing you to process between 1 to 8 films at a time. A thermometer to check the temperature of the chemicals. A measuring jug. Do not use one which will be used again for food. Some bottles, and a funnel to keep your mixed chemistry in.
That's pretty much it for the essential gear, as with all of this you can develop a roll of film without any problems at all. Now, this will all set you back less than £50, so it's not going to break the bank. There are some other items, however, which, although they're not essential, will make your life a lot easier.
A changing bag or tent will allow you to load the film onto the reels in daylight. These can range from around £20 up to almost £400, but more about this in a moment.
If you don't have one of these, then what you'll have to do is find a completely light-tight room, such as a bathroom without a window, and also stuff some towels under the door to prevent any stray light coming in.
Film clips to hang up your wet film while it dries. You can use clothes pegs if you want to save £15, but these will do the job better, as one is weighted to prevent the film from curling, and they also pierce the film so that it can't slip. Patterson make everything I've mentioned, and also provide a starter kit which has everything you're likely to need, including black and white chemicals to process your first rolls of film. We gave one of these away on a recent live show, so this is the kind of stuff you're missing out on if you're not one of our official supporters. Just saying. The Patterson starter kit is only £80 and contains the developing tank, thermometer, measuring jugs, chemicals, film clips and other useful bits, so it's great value and an economic way to get started.
So we have our exposed film and everything we need to develop it, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do is get this film onto this spool. Now, these spools from Paterson are quite clever because they accept both medium format film, which is what this is, but they also accept 35mm film by closing them down like that. But we need this in the medium format setting, which is this one here. Now, the next stage, getting this onto here, has to be done in complete darkness. And I use this rather expensive light tent here because not only do I deal with this size of film, but I have cameras which have got sheets of film this big, so I need something that size to load those. But if I was only doing this film and 35mm, then this would be a much more sensible option. It's also from Paterson, a changing bag, and that will only cost you about £34, so it's much cheaper than that, which is several £100s. Now, the only other option you have, if you didn't want to use one of these, is to find a completely light tight room. Now, don't be thinking that you can do this under a red safe light, because that's for printing, not developing. What we're doing here is developing, so it has to be done in complete darkness. Now, obviously I can't show you how to do this in the dark, so I'm going to have to sacrifice this particular roll and show you in the light. So this film's going to be ruined, but there's nothing particularly important on it. It's just a wedding that I shot last week. So to simulate me not being able to see what I'm doing, but you can see what I'm going to do, I'm going to wear this blindfold. Now, obviously this is not mine, so don't judge me for that, and I wouldn't normally need this. This is for your benefit. So here we go. So obviously I can't see anything, so I'm essentially in the dark now, but you can see something. So first thing, this is slightly different between medium format and 35mm. So I'm going to unroll this paper film here. Now, one thing that's worth noting is it's worth washing your hands before you touch film, because if you've got greasy hands and greasy fingers, you're not going to want to get all of that grease onto your film here, because you are going to have to handle the film. Disregarding the backing paper, that won't happen if you're using 35mm. There's a little sticky tab here, which I'm also going to take off. So now I'm just left with the film. So I'm going to find my reel, which is somewhere here. There it is. Obviously all of this is inside the bag. You make sure that that's the case before you start. Now, the reel can go two ways round. I can either hold it this way round, or I can hold it this way round. Let's just take out that middle bit first. In order to know which way it is, you have to feel, and there's little markers here. There they are. Okay, so that's telling me that I'm holding the reel the right way around, because there's little kind of markers that will face only one way and the film goes in there. So I get the end of the film and I'm going to put that in through those markers, and then once it's in, I just feed the film in, being careful that it's not going to kink at the back of that. Okay, so that's my film onto the roll. So I now have to find the spool, which I just took out from the middle. There it is. Push that through there. Find my tank, which is there. Push that in. Find the top, which is there. Put that on there and click it. Make sure it clicks shut. And then, this is not important because that can actually come out now. You put the lid on, but this is light tight without the lid. This is just to pour the chemicals in. So, but put the lid on, it's good practice. And then you can unzip the bag and bring this out into the light. And that's our film safely loaded into the dark tank.
I've prepared the two chemicals required for black and white, a developer and a fixer. My developer is 510 Pyro. This needs to be mixed at a ratio of 1 to 100. So to mix 1 litre, which is what I'm going to use to develop 2 rolls of medium format film at the same time, I use 10 millilitres of chemistry with 1 litre of water. If you ensure the water is around 20 degrees C before you mix it, it will save you having to adjust the temperature afterwards. The fixer can be used many times, but the developer is a one-shot chemistry, so needs to be discarded afterwards. As I'm processing Ilford FP4 here, the total time according to the 510 Pyro technical sheet is 10 minutes. After the first minute of agitation, I need to do a further 10 seconds for every further minute. You will always find this information with every developer, so it's really just a case of following simple instructions. At the end of each agitation, it's a good habit to tap the tank to loosen any potential air bubbles which have attached themselves to the film. Once the development time is over, pour out the chemistry. Some developers, such as the ones I use for colour film, can be reused. So if this is the case, pour them back into a bottle. In the case of 510 Pyro, it can only be used once, so you can safely pour it down the sink. Some chemicals need to be disposed of in other ways, something I'll discuss in a moment. A 100ml bottle costs £26 and will process around 50 films, which means each film costs around 50 pence to develop. We now need to wash the developing chemicals off the film. This is simply a case of doing a few rinses with water. Try to keep the temperature of the water close to 20 degrees C to avoid stressing the film emulsion, but this doesn't have to be accurate. As long as it's not warm to the touch or freezing cold, you should be okay. After 5 or so rinses, the water coming out of the tank should be clear. Now it's time for the fixer. Reset the stopwatch and start pouring in the fixer. Start the stopwatch once the pour is complete and agitate as before. The fixer time or temperature doesn't need to be so precise. As long as the chemistry is close to room temperature, then it will be fine. There's no need to take a thermometer reading. The time for the fixer I am using here says 2 to 6 minutes, which I read as being 2 minutes when the chemistry is fresh, but getting towards 6 minutes as it becomes more depleted. Now the film has been fixed, it's light safe, so we can remove the top of the tank if we like. We need to do more rinses with clean water. I usually do 8 rinses of around 15 seconds, but you can simply take the top off and leave it under a gently running tap for 3 or 4 minutes. Just make sure you don't use freezing cold or hot water. We now have some lovely black and white negatives. Before we hang these to dry, there is one more step we need to do. The use of a wetting agent as a final rinse will ensure you don't get any drying marks and that your film stays fungus-free for many years to come. A bottle of Ilford wetting agent will last for years, as it only needs to be diluted at 1 to 200, but mixed solution can be used many times. Do not wash the film after the wetting agent has been applied. Just use your fingers to squeegee the water from the film, then hang it up to dry in a dust-free location. Most film should be touch dry after an hour or so. Exactly the same method is required for C41 and E6 to give you colour negatives and positives respectively. The only difference is that the temperature needs to be 38 degrees C, so it means doing the whole process in a water bath of that temperature to avoid things cooling down during the process. You'll also find that the times and agitation frequency is slightly different, but each kit has clear instructions, so it's a very easy process to follow. I've processed hundreds of rolls of C41 and E6 films and have never messed it up. It's really not difficult to get great results every time. I've already mentioned that black and white processing costs around 50 pence per roll. Colour is a lot more expensive, with C41 being around £2.30 per roll and E6 being around £3.50. Finally, I mentioned about safely discarding used chemicals. Some are safe to pour down the sink, while others should be disposed of properly. Some recycling centres accept hazardous chemicals and others do not. My local one does not, so I pour all my used chemicals into a large gardening tray and leave it outside in the warmer summer months to evaporate. Once the water has disappeared, generally after a couple of weeks, I then scrape the sludge into a regular household disposal bin. This way, it won't contaminate any waterways or affect any wildlife. Hopefully that came across as easy as it is in reality. Now I mentioned earlier, there's actually 4 different types of film processes. The final one is something called ECN2. This is very similar to C41, except there's an extra step involved to remove an opaque backing to the film. And until this is removed, you can't actually look through to see your negatives. Now, regardless of which method you end up using, one thing you'll find really useful is a light panel like this, as this allows you to look at your negatives or positives and marvel at your results, and also a magnifying loupe like this helps you check critical sharpness.
thanks to Patterson Photographic for partnering with us on that feature. I've actually just got a home developing kit myself and I'm really looking forward to trying it out. I think there's that extra sense of satisfaction when you can look at a photo and know that you've personally seen it through every stage of its creation. It's also a great way to scratch that photography itch when it's dark or raining outside. Alright, well that's us at the end of another show. Do not forget to check out the podcast. There is a link to it in the usual place down here somewhere. Also, don't forget to check out our online shop where you can pre-order our 2025 calendar, as well as buy a whole host of other bits, from the tripods and filters that we use to branded lens cloths and guidebooks. There's loads there, so take a look when you can. Every purchase helps to support this channel. I'll be back next month with a slightly different looking show, as there won't be a photo challenge, but we've still got a load of other content for you, including some beaver photography, so you wouldn't want to miss that. If you are one of our many supporters, then I'll see you for our PO live show in just a couple of weeks, where we'll be giving away a camera and telling you about an exciting project that we've been filming for next year. Until then, take good care, but most of all, take good photos.